sometimes to avoid scheduling online teaching too close to my quitting time. Because as we all know, from the classroom, from the schoolyard, that's when there's the parent that comes in, the principal that announces the emergency meeting, the kid whose parents didn't pick them up, and you're stuck with little Johnny until mommy shows up. So you want to schedule it carefully. You really do. You want to, your full-time job is the one that's paying your rent. So you do not want to show those people the back of your middle finger anytime soon.
Welcome to the Teacher Money Show, the podcast dedicated to helping educators like yourself navigate your unique financial challenges and unlock your financial superpowers. I'm your host, Sean Morgan, a full-time teacher and entrepreneur, and I'm here to help teachers navigate everything related to your money. Whether you have questions about budgeting on a teacher's salary, managing student loans, increasing your income, or making the most of your benefits, I'm here to make money less confusing, more empowering, and a tool you can use to focus on what matters most. So whether you're a seasoned teacher looking for fresh insights or a new educator navigating your first paycheck, this podcast is your go-to resource for all things money related. So if you're ready to have a richer wallet, classroom, and life, let's dive in. The contents of this podcast are informational in nature and are not legal or tax advice, and neither I nor my guests are engaged in the provision of legal, tax, or any other advice. You should not act upon this information without first seeking appropriate advice from an accountant, financial planner, lawyer, or other professional. Welcome to the Teacher Money Show. I'm so excited to have Daniel Villarreal here with me. And this is just a really fun story. I send out emails to people who want to get them. And Daniel reached out to me and he told me a play on words in Spanish that he thought I would find quite funny. I'll actually ask him to tell the play on words because he'll probably be better at it than I am. But it's the Spanish play on words from a guy named Daniel Villarreal, who teaches English in Taiwan. I was immediately intrigued by this guy. It's just got so many great things happening. It's hilarious for me that we live in a world where that's even possible. But he told me that he helps educators teach online to supplement their income. So that just said that's a topic that we should talk about. So I'm excited to have Daniel on the show today. Daniel, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Sean. Thank you. Distant handshake all the way from across the Pacific and half a continent. Yeah. Good to meet you.
Wonderful to meet you too.
It's typhoon weather here. I'm stuck inside my home watching heavy rain and horrific winds, but I'm in my home. I don't care.
Well, I'm glad you're staying safe out there. We're bone dry here and have been for weeks. So we got a different weather going on for sure.
Good for you.
So with that introduction, first of all, I'd love for you to tell everyone the wonderful play on words you told us. And then just because I'm immensely curious, how did you get where you are? I'd love to hear your story, just a brief overview of everything you've done in language and education and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. I was several years ago, I was working in San Antonio, Texas, working for the county, Behar County, as a staff interpreter. I was school trained as an interpreter at a place called the Monterey Institute of International Studies. If you look it up, the name has been changed, but the website will flip over to the whatever the current name is, Middlebury Institute or something like that. Anyway, I was school trained as a court interpreter. Now, how I got into that was interesting. I was attending a Spanish-speaking church. I was teaching at a private sector, federally funded school that taught Mexican farm workers in Salinas, California. They had a layoff. I got caught in a layoff. And my Spanish-speaking pastor and his wife took me out to dinner. And this is a heck of a story. And they said, well, you speak Spanish, you speak English. have you considered being an interpreter? And I said, well, I don't know anything about it. And they said, okay, look, go to the Salinas courthouse tomorrow and you will see, go where they have all the docket sheets listed in the lobby, and you'll see people of the state of California versus Villarreal, people of the state of California versus Covarrubias, and so forth. Long story short, I was trained to be an interpreter at the Monterey Institute, got my advanced Spanish training at the UNAM branch, National Autonomous University of Texas in San Antonio, and found myself employed full-time as a court interpreter. Part-time, I was getting more advanced Spanish training. Then I pursued a master's degree at the local university. And there I did an independent study in Mexico. You know, I rode the bus. I'd made contact with a state congresswoman from the state of Jalisco, Guadalajara, you know, big Mexican hats, right? And she connected me to be able to interview several people about the Mexican education system, which is quite fascinating. Anyway, one of the teachers told me the term pobresor. Now, pobre, P-O-B-R-E, means poor, and profesor, professor with one S, is professor. So the whole thing, pobresor, I've translated it since to porfessor. It's Mexican slang and Mexican humor that refers to how little educators are paid. You know, because I met educators there that their schools had an AM shift and a PM shift. They both were full-time jobs, right? I met people like a married couple. It's like he and she both worked the AM shift. He and she both worked the PM shift. One lady was a teacher in the PM and the principal in the AM. And then I saw other Mexican teachers who were dancing at a Mexican restaurant. My hostess there told me, yeah, those are teachers up there. You know, they're moonlighting. Okay, so I took that pobresor thing to heart. And now that I live in Taiwan, I almost every year I present at and attend the ETA-ROC, English Teachers Association Republic of China convention, and I will typically present on some topic to help people not be a professor, to climb out of professor status and maybe at least be not professor or rich fessor or some kind of fessor besides a poor one. So that's how the whole professor thing gets started. I teach at Taiwan. I have what I consider a portfolio career. I teach at Taiwanese universities. I've taught at some high schools and some private sector schools. But on the side, I do online teaching. I do some copy editing, which for the people commonly say proofreading. But for all you teachers out there, when you correct a student's paper, that's what I'm doing, but I'm getting paid for it. Okay. And I'm also available for a Spanish to English translation. And I got to Taiwan. I was in my PhD program, foreign language education at University of Texas at Austin, Hook 'em Horns. And we got recruited by an FLE grad in Taiwan to come teach a special summer program. I totally fell in love with the country, and I started coming back here Christmas and summers for language training, for part-time work, et cetera, and just to hang out because I really liked it. And then I decided to move here. I did my research here for my dissertation, and I found part-time work and then a series of part-time jobs. I'm a permanent resident here now. So that's awesome. The long story short. Yeah.
That is an amazing story. I just love how you've been able to take your interest in language and education and take it to somewhere you love. I think that's just a fantastic show of how you can have that freedom there as well, just to go where you want to be and do what you want to do with this online teaching in particular. I think that's amazing. I know that not everything you do is online, but you do a lot of online stuff. So that I think that just shows the freedom that you have by doing that.
Online is what's happening. many ways.
For
Yeah.
sure, for sure. So we're talking about supplementing our teacher incomes by teaching online. You've given seminars on it, but like, is it even worth it? Like, should teachers be pursuing this? Will teachers make enough money by teaching online?
Well, now here's where the audience gets to see just what a two-faced hypocrite I really am. I'm going to say yes and no and maybe and it depends. Um, okay, because everybody's circumstances are different. Okay, if you've got a very time-consuming full-time job, I'm not going to say that online is not for you, but you may want to ease into it on a very part-time basis, get good at it, um, and then maybe jump into it full time later. Now, here's my situation. I'm uh, I'm planning to retire a year from now with American Social Security, and that um, that will I've done the math, and that should support me here in Taiwan with my current standard of living. At the same time, I've made I hate to sound really too woo woo, but I made a goal and wrote it down of adding one student per month from January 2023 to July 2024. So far, I'm on pace, um, and it's like The Secret or something. The students kind of keep coming, and I'm maybe a little bit ahead. In my situation, again, everybody's different. Um, Either the online teaching or the Social Security will support me easily. In the meantime, I'm working. I'm not giving up work. But now I'll say this. I used to work for VIP Kid that you may have heard of, big company,
Yeah.
Chinese company. Uh, the Chinese government, long story short, no longer wanted American and Canadian teachers from outside the country teaching their kids. But when I was there, the money was good. They were open from 8 a.m. until initially 10 p.m. Then it was like 9 p.m. There were some teachers that worked 7 days a week, all those hours. You could pick the hours you wanted. Um, I didn't. I did evenings after work, and weekends were my money making time. Sunday after church, 2 p.m. until VIP Kids no longer available. And so if you find something that's a platform and you can fill those hours, here's where I say it depends, maybe, and so forth. Depending on your, where you live, your standard of living, how much you pay in rent, and all this kind of stuff, you may well make a go of it, even with these platforms that pay like $10 an hour. I had one part-time situation after the Chinese government said no more teaching after 9. Somebody turned me on to this other company that's now defunct, but they were paying about $10 an hour. It's not much, but it's that kind of adds up. If you and I are hanging out at Starbucks and then you reach across the table and say, "Hey Dan, here's $10," I'm gonna say, "Hey Sean, don't leave yet." Okay, um, so it adds up. I think it's well worth it. What I advise teachers to do is get into it. Don't give up your day job and just say, "Here's my middle finger. I'm going online." I don't think that's a smart move. Okay, um, you know, make your daytime gig your base and ease your way into it. Get some instruction on how this stuff works. VIP Kid. If you like Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, he says, "Work to learn, not to earn." And VIP Kid, along with some good money, they taught me the skills of online teaching. How to be comfortable talking to the camera, how to have adequate lighting, and and all that kind of stuff. There are a lot of sources out there, so learn the skill and ease into it. Like I say, I'm doing teaching, copy editing, and I'm available for translating Spanish to English. And I don't know how many bilinguals are out there, but I would suggest pick one one area and get good at it. For most classroom teachers, that would be teaching, because that's what you do 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. There's certainly the chance to make good money at it. You've got to get comfortable with charging what you're worth.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we're talking about platforms, but also you also getting your own students. So would you recommend maybe starting with a platform and then moving on towards getting your own students, or do you think that getting your own students is better, or does it depend on your situation?
Well, it kind of does depend on your situation, but what worked very well for me was teaching for a couple of platforms first. Learn the skill, get get accustomed to it. I've still got I had two, now I'm down to one former VIP Kid student that I teach, and I met that kid through VIP Kid. So especially if you've never done this before, the platforms will they'll teach you the trade. So yeah, start with the platform. I've not tried Cambly, but I've heard good things about it. Cambly, and there are probably a few others. I found VIP Kid by just doing a Google search, something like ESL online teaching or something.
I'm not
So
sure
you
if
might.
there's any teacher who hasn't found VIP Kid with the online search. They were pretty aggressive there for a while trying to recruit people. They were everywhere, it seemed like.
They were, and they were killing it.
How did you you said pay your worth, like charge what you're worth, I guess. What do you mean by that? Can you explain that?
Well, like I said, that one company was paying $10 an hour. Okay. That's not much for a professional teacher. You got the degrees, you got the credentials, you got the experience. It was okay for that circumstance, though. I don't have to go find the students. The students are sent to me by the company. And like I say, these were adult learners. They're very easy to work with. And it's just like you and I are hanging out at Starbucks. You hand me $10. Hey, that was cool. You
Yeah.
know, yeah. But you're not going to pay an American mortgage with that. You
Right.
know,
So
uh,
if you have like a private student, you're going to want to charge a higher dollar value, which is you have to figure that out. But you're not going to charge $10 an hour for
you're
a
you're
private student.
you're not. Yeah, I'm going to say you want to, the low. I mean, I hate to cite specific rates and stuff, but the lowest I think an online teacher should be charging is 20 or 30 for an hour, and many are charging much more.
I definitely agree. Uh,
Yeah,
there's tutoring you can make a killing at. So just be aware that there's a wide range of what you can do online teaching wise, and you can charge quite a bit for it if you know what you're doing. Which if you're teaching every day, you probably should know what you're doing. Uh,
yeah.
well, let's
Well,
say
and
that you're trying
uh,
to get the most money you can by doing this. What are the most in demand skills or subjects maybe?
well, if you look at some of the people who talk about this a lot on YouTube, um, they talk about finding yourself a niche, or uh, I think our British friends say niche. Okay, find yourself a niche or a niche. Pick one of the two, and be very very good at that. Um, but um, some things that are very good are young learners. Okay, if you're good with kids, the advantage of young learners is that they tend to stay with you for a long, long time. I've taught this VIP kid, and the one I was teaching before him as well. I've taught them for a long time. I was teaching in person at a home here in Taipei. I taught these kids from when they were, the daughter was a kid, just a little kid, up until they both ended up going off to college. They tend to keep you along a lot longer um, for teaching young learners. Adults, they often are interested in things like test preparation. If you're good at teaching SAT, GRE, test of English as a foreign language, the disadvantage with those is it's kind of a one night stand. They come, they get their they get their training, and then unless they are just dying uh, to keep improving their English, for example, then they're gone. Okay.
Yeah, if
So
you're really good at marketing, if you're doing, someone who's just going to be with you for 3, 6, 9 months, because you have to keep finding more and more clients instead of having a client that comes back to you year after year after year.
yeah, one of my secrets, there is a free newsletter called Breaking News English. I don't know if you know that newsletter, but it's written by a guy in Britain. In fact, I think his name is Sean, Sean. Um, and that has got remarkable articles, tons of games and activities. It's got the answer sheet. Um, it's got recordings in American and British English you can listen to. I get a lot of mileage with adults that simply want conversation, and they tend to stick around for a while, because
So they
it's not
talk
fine.
to it in English to practice their English. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. English is a foreign language. Adult learners that want, adults, they tend to want one or two things. They want they have a specific need, like interviewing skills, test prep skills, or they simply want conversation. I want to improve my English. I want to talk to a native speaker. And Breaking News English is the greatest. Um, Subscriptions are free. If you subscribe, tell Sean, you can send him a little bit of cash if you want to. You don't have to, but you can tell him that the American guy who sent him $20.11 sent you. And what is that? My PhD, I earned it in the year 2011. So I sent Sean a one-time $20.11 with a note saying, "Thank you, Sean. Your excellent newsletter is enabling me to make good use of my foreign language education degree from 2011." So he'll remember me. Yeah.
I'm sure it's very, very memorable donation. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's say we've convinced some teachers here to teach online. They want to go for it. How do you go about balancing? Like, say you have a full-time job, but then you're also wanting to teach online. How do you handle that?
Well, the way I handle it is I'm I've got my teaching schedule, and I'm very careful to sometimes to avoid scheduling online teaching too close to my quitting time. Um, because as we all know, from the classroom, from the schoolyard, that's when there's the parent that comes in, the principal that announces the emergency meeting, um, the kid whose parents didn't pick them up, and you're stuck with little Johnny until mommy shows up. So you want to schedule it carefully. You really do. You want to, your full time job is the one that's paying your rent. So you do not want to show those people the back of your middle finger anytime soon. You want to treat them well. So definitely make it part time, and then maybe in the summer you can go kind of crazy. Ease into it. And another thing I advise you to think about, um, if you're not familiar with the term vesting, I was not for many years. When you work with a certain employer for so many years, you're entitled to a pension. Okay, so in your at your company, in your state, etc., find out when you vest. Don't find that teachers in XYZ state vest at 4 years, and you quit at the 3.5 year mark to go online. Finish that fourth year, that eighth year, whatever, qualify for that pension, because your older self will thank you for it. You know,
Some very
uh,
good advice.
yeah, and something similar with Social Security. Get those quarters in. You know,
Yeah, I love how you said go crazy during the summer because I love how this is something that you can ramp up during the summer. Or maybe if you're working with like a platform, I don't know, I haven't done them, but maybe you can, when you have a 2 week break for Christmas, you can, take on some more responsibility or something. Anything because teachers have time. We talk about we don't have any time. That's because during the school year, our time is just like crazy. But then during the summer, we have time during the summer if we're honest about it. So we can really use that to ramp up our income by online teaching, and maybe, find enough clients that after that vesting period, or, if we decide we want to go online, we can use that. I think that that's a really great tip. All right, so we're starting to wind down this awesome conversation we're having. Are there any just misconceptions or myths about teaching online that our listeners should be aware of?
Um, yeah, there's the misconception that it is a total cakewalk. Um, I mean, I love it. It's great. COVID. I'm now my position is not or people died. Hooray! I'm so happy. That's not it. But COVID forced me, as a guy who grew up with manual typewriters, dating myself, right, to learn how to do things like share screen. I didn't know how to do that before. Okay, um, you know, so uh, so I've got an easier life when I go online. However, unlike the brick and mortar world where the work comes to you, you've got to go out and go, kill it and drag it to the cave yourself. That's tough, and students come and go. They come and go and come and go. So you want to build up your financial base the best way you can. Save some money, have some money saved before you go full time. Ease into full time. Um, because like I say, students come and go. Unlike your semester job, they issue you 20 students at the beginning of the year, and you get paid X dollars an hour unless you commit a crime or something, and you've got that contract for the whole year.
Yeah, that's a huge point. Like the thing about entrepreneurship, going out on your own, is that it's all on you, right? The buck stops here. There's no one else doing it for you, so you have to be aware of that and be prepared for that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and you have no control over, if the parent says, well, we really love your teaching, but Johnny is quite busy with his extracurriculars now, so we're going to have to drop it.
Yeah, yeah. There's very little control in that regard. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you have any suggestions for where to go for more information if someone's like, I want to do this, but where's like a good starting point for someone who wants to start teaching online?
Yeah, you can go to, there's a variety of, uh, like, okay, go to, uh, go to YouTube and search for Online Teacher Dude. It's a Canadian guy who is a former VIP Kid teacher himself. Go to ESL 365. Go to Lisa's Study Guides, and you can. There are also a couple of really good things on. What is the guy's name? Stephen, I believe is PH. Stephen Worldwide. He's got some good tips about how he made, I think it was $5,000 or $6,000 a month teaching in Korea. Um, so you can get a lot of free or very low cost information. If you're interested in translation and interpretation, if you're a bilingual, I went from teaching to T&I back to teaching. And if you're interested in that, I would suggest going to a website, Acebo. It's all caps, Acebo, and the owner is Holly Mickelson. She was my teacher at the Monterey Institute of International Studies, and you can get a lot of. I think her tab is resources to get that. Also, ATIA, AATIA, all caps, Austin Association of Translators and Austin Area Translators and Interpreters Association, and TAJIT, TAJIT, Texas Association of Judiciary Interpreters and Translators. And you can also Google, I don't remember their current name, but Google Monterey Institute of International Studies, and it'll take you to the current thing, and you can read all about T&I. So those are some places to go. I strongly suggest, do your research, get those free goodies. They've got some great free online courses from those YouTubers that I mentioned, and then they've got some courses that are they're not too terribly expensive, so you can learn the online trade before you just go jump into it.
All right, awesome. Those are that's a long list of resources. So I'm going to make sure I post those in our show notes. So if you want to find the show notes, you can go to teachyourmoneyshow.com/podcast and find this podcast, and you'll find all of the links to those things there. I'll do all the searching for you, so you can just go to that one place to find all those links that Daniel just shared with us. Okay, 2 more questions for you, Daniel. What is your number one tip for teachers to have a richer wallet, classroom, and life?
I would pass on information. I took many years ago when I was living in California, I took a leadership course from the Salinas Chamber of Commerce. And our guest speaker was the sheriff of Monterey County. And I'll never forget what he said. He said, learn everything you can from every job you've ever held, and then take that into the next job, and then take that into the next job. I've lived by that, and it's incredible. I took my my knowledge from Radio Shack, if you remember them. I was one of their salespeople. I took that knowledge into my interpreter job, and I was a hero because when we had to transcribe tapes, I knew how to connect all the little cords to the television and the VCR. There's some unlikely connections, but that's one thing I would strongly advise. I mentioned work to learn, not to earn. So attend conferences, volunteer to teach other things, run extracurriculars, teach something out of your comfort zone, learn more subjects, more books, more textbooks and stuff, because then you'll have more things to choose from. It's good to have a broad base of knowledge, and then to maybe focus on the niche that's going to work for you. And then the other thing would be, Robert Kiyosaki's focus, follow one course until successful. Don't try to do everything at once. Focus on the one thing. I suggest teaching, and I suggest, picking a niche to start with. You can always expand it or change it. So there we have it.
That is all just absolutely amazing advice. Go back and listen to that again, everybody. That was awesome. Okay, last question. If a teacher wants to get in contact with you, how could they do that?
Yeah, the best, actually, my email is easy, probably the easiest email in all of Asia to remember. I'm an interpreter. I'm a man. I'm an American, and here I am online, right? Capital INTERPRETER, capital MAN, interpreter man, all one word, at AOL.com, AmericaOnline.com. You can also reach me. I'm happy to take LinkedIn connections for anybody that is on LinkedIn. Daniel Steve, not Stephen, but Steve, VILL, that's the Spanish letter, ARR, that's the Spanish letter, EAL, comma, big P, little h, dot, big D, dot, plus LinkedIn. And you can find my LinkedIn profile, and I'm happy to take a connection request. And I do some writing on LinkedIn. There might be some stuff that might be of interest to you.
All right. I love it. Thank you so much, Daniel. It was so great having you on.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you, Sean. I appreciate it.
If you'd like to come on the podcast for coaching, to share an expert opinion, or just to talk about a topic you think is relevant, I'd love to talk to you. Just fill out the form at teachermoneyshow.com/guest. I look forward to talking with you.